Historical mythology of the Anunnaki and the Igigi. They believe the terms are synonymous and just come from two different cultures. However, closer inspection of the historical documents and writings indicate that the Anunnaki is a term to describe all these beings, with the Nephilim only a part of the whole. In fact, the Nephilim are more closely related to the Igigi, as there were fewer, and they all seem to exist up in heaven rather than down in the netherworld. Although the root words seem to indicate this type of relationship between the two groups, there are no true links describing the exact origin of Anunnaki as a word itself. The people who study these kinds of things in the modern world use what they know of the ancient languages and the mythology surrounding these deities to formulate appropriate ideas. From a scholarly perspective, Anunnaki seems to indicate the sons or heirs of Anu, who was the main Sumerian god, instead of a concept of heaven to earth descent. Other suggestions include the word Anuna, which means noble and fear, or Danuna, which refers to all the gods in heaven and the netherworld. In all these instances, the key part of Anunnaki seriously gets ignored. Different translations and configurations of the name abound. Variations between the various word parts and their meanings do not always hold up to additional scrutiny. For example, if Anunnaki was some mistaken form of Anuna, why were both terms in use at the same time? Equally perplexing language issues surround the Igigi. In Sumer, the word part seems to indicate eyes, a face, surrounding, or a young man. Do these designated gods represent youth, or are they deities who surround or besiege in battle? As there's some indication that repeating syllables pluralize the words in these ancient languages, Igigi could simply indicate a pair of eyes gazing down at the people below on Earth. The symbol of a pair of eyes, which seemed to align with the concept that the Igigi looked down at humanity and watched them, matches the biblical description of the Nephilim as the Watchers. This seems to indicate that all the spiritual beings throughout the various civilizations had very close ties to each other. The conversation and continuing research about the language and meaning behind these two pervasive terms makes for an interesting academic discussion. More researchers come up with ideas that may fit in with current knowledge about the Mesopotamians and Sumerians, but there's really no way of knowing exactly what these words mean. The key issue is, if the Nephilim or Watchers are the same or closely related, then our reading material on the mysterious Sumerians is vastly extended, specifically into the Book of Enoch. The myth of Etana and the plant of birth. There are so many historical mythological accounts to choose from. For the purpose of narrative, discussion, and insight, it would take forever to go through them all. However, the myth of Etana stands out. We see a direct connection between earthly people and these gods, as if a real event has taken place. Not a story, not a legend, a real historical account. Electrical seals dated around 2300 to 2279 BCE show the origins of this myth that come out of Sumer in truly ancient times. The myth of Etana involves the king of Kish and his journey to visit the gods in a desperate attempt to convince them to give him the plant of birth, which will allow his wife to bear him a son. Some of the most important archaeological evidence of this story comes from around 700 BCE and was found in the Nineveh Library, built originally by King Assurbanipal. Assurbanipal was a fanatical record keeper and spoke all the Mesopotamian languages. This particular fragment now exists in the British Museum. When compared with these cylinder seals, it becomes obvious that the much older Babylonian story was the forerunner of the Assyrian one created over 1,000 years later. The myth of Etana parallels many other pieces of legend and folklore from not only the ancient Sumerian culture, but also many others all around the globe. It speaks of gods, wondrous cities, strong rulers, intelligent animals, and a heroic quest. Also, like other stories, this one appears to serve as an allegory or direct message to people that feel something about kings to them. The first Kish dynasty was impressively long, with 23 kings ruling in succession. Most other dynasties that existed way back in those days only lasted for several before falling apart or having their power usurped by another family. It was in these days that the monarchies first started to follow a succession based on male heirs. In other words, a king would pass the crown to his son. This made having a male child so important that any king who did not have a son would be expected to take extreme measures. The myth of Etana demonstrates this clearly. The city of Kish was built before an appropriate ruler was found to control it. It was given considerable protection by the gods, who built a massive wall to guard anyone who lived inside. Inanna selects Etana to be the first king, and he immediately constructs a shrine to honor Adad. In this tale, shrine is overshadowed by a poplar tree. It was quite common for a ruler to build shrines and temples to various gods or goddesses who would bless the city and all who lived there. A snake lives near its roots, and an eagle nests in the topmost branches. These two creatures vowed to remain loyal to each other, stay as friends, and protect whatever offspring they have. Shamash, the sun god, witnesses and verifies this oath. Everything follows along in a wonderful fashion until the eagle goes forward as soon as his kin grows up. Now upon the snake's family and wreaks havoc. Unfortunately, the snake returns from his daily hunt, and his kin are missing and not there to greet him. He finds the eagle's kin are also gone, the nest abandoned, but the distinctive markings of talons in his home amid the poplar roots. The snake immediately knows what happened and becomes extremely angry that his former friend betrayed his trust in such a horrific way. He implores Shamash to take revenge against the eagle. Since this god was a witness to their original agreement, it makes sense that he could also be the one to dole out punishment to the transgressor. The sun god suggests that he sets a trap with the corpse of wild ox. The snake slithers inside and waits until the eagle comes to feast. Then with lightning swiftness, he darts out, wraps around the eagle, breaks his wings, plucks his feathers, and finally tosses it in the pit. Now it's the eagle's turn to ask the sun god for help. Believing that the eagle probably learned his lesson and repeating once again that the bird should not have attacked his friend's kin, Shamash tells Etana to go help the eagle out of the pit. However, the king of Kish, who built the shrine near the poplar tree, is more concerned with his family troubles than helping an eagle. His wife was unable to give him a son, and he's afraid that he'll have no heir to succeed him to the throne. The sun god says he'll help if Etana first assists the eagle. The man does so, befriends the bird, nurses him back to health, and finally carries them up to heaven to receive an amazing gift from Inanna, the plant of birth. During this amazing flight, Etana grows quite terrified when he looks down and cannot see the ground anymore. In his terror, he lets go of the eagle's feathers and begins to plummet toward the earth. Luckily, the great bird saves him and returns him to Kish and his wife. After having prophetic dreams that convince him to make a second attempt to reach the heavens, King Etana is able to ask Inanna for her gift and blessing. Although a part of the story was either lost or destroyed over the years since it was first written, it's revealed that Etana does eventually sire a son who can take over the throne after him. His name is Bali, and it was assumed that he was born with the help of the plant of birth. The entire fate of a dynasty was and still is historically intertwined with the gods. Scene's battle with the gods and the Curse of Agade. As with most ancient stories, the Curse of Agade is quite older than its recorded history from the Ur-Il period that existed from 2047 to 1750 BCE. In this exciting tale, one of the top gods, Enlil, had a battle with Naram-Sin, a prominent king in Acadia. He is the son of Sargon the Great, who started the entire empire. The son was very prestigious and expanded the borders of the kingdom through fighting and conquest. As with most prominent historical figures who displayed a high degree of might and prowess, he had many legendary stories told about him. Many people across Mesopotamia enjoyed hearing of his exciting life. The Nineveh Library, collected in the 7th century BCE by the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal, contained written copies of the story. What is the Curse of Agade? This tome existed as a fine representation of what's called Naru literature.
Naru.
This genre is characterized by the relationships between deities and humans. Although they have some basis in history, most of them are fictional stories or folklore. Some other examples of these types of stories associated with Naram-Sin include the Kutha legend and the Great Revolt. The Curse of Agade became one of the more popular pieces of literature associated with this prominent theme. It raised an interesting philosophical question because it depicted Naram-Sin seeking to discover why the gods allowed him to exist in such misery after Akkad city was destroyed. Again, all historical analysis reveals that Naram-Sin acted at every point as if these gods were a reality. It seemed that the king himself did not properly worship the gods and show piety. Therefore, Enlil stopped looking on Akkad with favor and blocked all other deities from putting any blessing upon it. Naram-Sin absolutely fell into a depression and begged to the gods for answers to no avail. At last, he raised an army and destroyed the temple of Enlil in nearby Nippur city. In the Curse of Agade, as expected, this attack angers the gods even more. The result was the destruction of Akkad, famine, and a total takeover by a group of people favored by the gods called the Gitans. This is not mythology, this is real historical account. And it was recorded exactly like this. Motive of the gods and all. Scholars get around this by demoting the notion of gods, saying they were people who became gods in an ideological way. Despite the general acceptance of this morality tale as truth, historians cannot find any real evidence that the king destroyed the temple or Akkad fell as a result of Naram-Sin's actions. Whoever wrote the Curse of Agade probably used this ruler and city because they were well known, and it would make a much more effective tale. Naru literature seems to have supplanted historical truth in some cases. However, historians don't believe in gods, and have painted themselves into a corner when historical accounts speak of them in real accounts. The goal of the Curse of Agade was to teach people not to upset the gods. It demonstrated how to have a proper relationship with them. Lack of answers from the gods, or a true explanation about what Naram-Sin ever did to make them angry in the first place, allows readers or people hearing the story to imagine their own selves and situations within it. Human suffering frequently has no obvious answer. The god Enlil simply decides not to protect the city anymore. He feels no pressure from any outside force, and he could have chosen to let Akkad continue to prosper. Researchers have suggested that the story was told to represent doubt of the legitimacy of Naram-Sin's rule. The structure of this piece of literature follows many Naru genre stories, as well as many other types of legends and fictional accounts of historical activities. It all starts on an ordinary day in Akkad, telling about how wonderful the city is and how rich it is from trade and commerce. It tells of how the goddess Inanna blessed the city and felt honored to be a part of it all. Then conflict arises when Enlil shows his disapproval with the city in general. While a specific reason is never given, suppositions include a lack of respect for Naram-Sin as king. This is linked in part to the god's support of Sargon, who he wanted to rule over Mesopotamia at large. The history records show no problems occurring when Naram-Sin took over from Sargon. However, every conflict in a story must be answered by decisive action. The king, however, responds to the downfall of the city by asking the gods for an answer, remaining penitent, and praying for 7 full years. Unfortunately, Enlil does not answer. In the Curse of Agade, Naram-Sin then gets quite angry with Enlil and the other gods and takes action to get some kind of answers out of them. The destruction of the temple represents an attack on the god himself, and not just breaking a holy spot of worship and prayer. The temple there was considered essentially the house of the god, with a bedchamber, treasure chest, and more. A person who destroys or damages a god's physical home or steals his property will surely end up punished in quite several ways. The destruction of Akur obviously makes Enlil even angrier, and other deities join the cause to ruin Naram-Sin and Akkad completely. The final punishment for a mysterious initial purpose, and the final sacrilege and blasphemy of destroying Enlil's home and property, is to allow a group of people called the Geatons to invade Akkad, who destroyed much of it, and to cause a famine and blight on the land. As with any ancient folklore, the Curse of Agade seems to have a very prominent lesson. Don't anger the gods. Uchu historical mythology. Uchu, the famed sun god, had many names, also known as Shamash, Samas, and Babar. Was not just
Google Fi, a phone plan by Google. If Extreme Santa made a phone plan, he could snap and share his endless bag of tricks.
Sumerian god of the sun, but of divine justice. He's the son of Nana, the moon god, and Ningal, the fertility goddess. Uchu was the Sumerian tradition, but was also known as Shamash, or Samas, to the Akkadians, and they claimed Anu or Enlil as his father. In the Sumerian tradition, they're very clear that he's the twin brother of Inanna, goddess of war, love, and sensuality, and brother of Ereshkigal, queen of the dead, and Ishkur, also known as Adad, god of storms. This tight-knit family were the main deities of so many epics in Sumerian and Akkadian. Uchu is one of the most significant deities in the Mesopotamian pantheon, and appearing in the earliest Sumerian writings, circa 3500 BCE, after the appearance of Nana. Uchu is often physically depicted as an old man with a long beard and shoulders which emanate rays of light. In addition, he's also represented as the solar disk when he comes to the Neo-Assyrian period, circa 912 to 612 BCE. He becomes a disk with wings. The Law Code of Hammurabi, 1792 to 1750 BCE, specifically addresses Shamash by name and rank, and states it was Shamash who provided humanity with the laws. In Sumer, he's cantered around Larsa and Eridu, and to the north, in the Akkad region, he was venerated at Sapar. His temples were given the name of E-Babar, literally meaning white house or shining house. Thus the name attached itself to the god as Babar, the shining one. Uchu, Shamash's wife, was called Sarita, in Akkadian Aya. She was the goddess of the dawn. By the Old Babylonian period, circa 2000 to 1600 BCE, was the patroness of the Naditu. These were secluded women who had devoted themselves to the divine, similar in some ways to orders of nuns in the modern world. The Naditu are routinely associated with Uchu or Shamash because their seclusion was attached to his shining temples, but it was his wife Aya they worshipped and served. Nearly all the mythology of Mesopotamia regarding Uchu Shamash speaks of his kindness and generosity. The first literature addressed to this god by the name Shamash dates from circa 2600 BCE, but he was referenced interchangeably as Uchu or Shamash regularly throughout Mesopotamian history, from the advent of cuneiform writing, circa 3500 BCE, until its abandonment, circa 100 BCE, covering a 3,000-year span. The symbol of the solar disk shows a circle with 4 points protruding toward the cardinal directions, and 4 wavy lines emanating diagonally outward from between them, representing the power of light, warmth, and reach of the sun. Some speculate this is the solstices and equinoxes with the further cross-quarter days embedded. Uchu was vigorously portrayed as the god of justice. With the sun trailing across the sky, could obviously see everything that transpired on Earth. Uchu Shamash was not only the bringer of light, but also the one who's seen justice. Ryan Moorhen, an expert on Uchu Shamash, states, Uchu represents the brilliant light of the sun, which returns every day to illuminate the life of mankind, as well as giving beneficial warmth, which causes plants to grow. As the illuminated sun was thought to be able to pierce every level of the earth, including the underworld, there was nothing. There was nothing, therefore, which Uchu Shamash did not see the full perspective on. Historian and author E.A. Wallace Budge states that in primitive times, he was supposed to stride over the heavens on foot, but in later times to do so in a fiery chariot, which was drawn by animals driven by one Bunin. He was regarded as a gracious god, for he helped all who were in trouble, gave life to the dead, and set free him that was in bonds. Possessing the power to see everywhere, he knew all things and judged men rightly. Bunin is one of those Sumerian deities that gets little attention. More often, he's represented as his son, and is only worshipped at Sapar, Uruk, and Ashar as god of justice. Uchu Shamash, being the son of Nana, was always listed in second to his father, but he was not considered of any less significance. His symbolism, as well as mythology, are among the most numerous in Mesopotamian artifacts, inscriptions, and literature. It's mind-boggling the reach Uchu had over Mesopotamia. Hammurabi, a sagacious and precarious king, understood exactly how invoking the name of Shamash for his famed law code would give it more weight. This is not to say he did not believe this god did have power, reverence or not, but Hammurabi could have as easily chosen Marduk. Marduk was, after all, the patron god of Babylon, Hammurabi's city. The same goes for Enki as choice, well known as the god of wisdom. Uchu Shamash was the obvious choice for Hammurabi because his presence was daily through the light of the sun. God of the Sun. Uchu Shamash, the god of the sun, emerged every morning from the doors of heaven in the east. 2 somewhat lesser gods flung open these doors for him, and he came forth. He entered his chariot to ride across the sky for his daily journey to the west. Again, 2 other gods opened the gates for him to enter. He took refuge in the underworld nightly, until his wife awakened him at dawn, and he traversed the sky in his chariot. For this reason, the entrance to the Mesopotamian underworld was thought to be in the west, quite close to the western gates of the sun god. In some epochs, it was believed Uchu Shamash descended into the underworld at dusk to make judgments there. Uchu Shamash. The judgment of the underworld is an intriguing minor departure from the standard perspective where the spirits were all equivalent. Death was the incredible equalizer who carried lords and peasants to the equivalent spot. There was no outline of a paradise or damnation, however, just a diminished domain where the spirits dwelled. In the Sumerian conviction, in any case, the souls were judged, and that judgment influenced their future in existence and the afterlife, regardless of anything. Orientalist Samuel Noah Kramer states, "The deceased were not treated all alike. There was a judgment of the dead by the sun god, Utu, and to a certain extent by the moon god Nana. And if the judgment was favorable, the dead man's soul would presumably live in happiness and contentment and have all it desired. However, the indications are that the Sumerians had but little trust in hopes of a blissful life in the netherworld, even for the good and deserving. By and large, the Sumerians were convinced that life in the netherworld was but a...
Tap and connect your new phone in minutes, if you can open it, with a little help from Google Fi, a phone plan by Google.
Plumber, that's the world's grossest pie. And then it all goes.
dismal, wretched reflection of life on Earth. All things considered, since the sun could light up even the underworld, it appears there was trust that Uchu Shamash would venture into this netherworld and contact the afterlife. Like his dad Nana, Uchu Shamash at that point filled in as a sort of extension between the living and the individuals who had passed on to the opposite side. It was accepted that nourishment and water and different contributions should keep on being brought for their souls since they kept on existing, just without bodies and still required sustenance. Uchu Shamash's judgment of them always passed. It was clear the spirits still existed to be judged, thus the living kept on regarding them with honor. If the dead were deserving of recognition by the sun god, humans could respect and recollect them also. Uchu Shamash is quite often delineated as a benevolent promoter, unreservedly giving the blessings of life. However, like many the most significant Mesopotamian divine beings, he was a totally acknowledged individual and was not above denying a solicitation which burdened him. Uchu Shamash in mythology. Most of the myths featuring Uchu Shamash emphasizes kindness and generosity. In the myth of Etana, which predates the reign of Sargon of Akkad, 2334 to 2279 BCE, the hero petitions Shamash for aid in helping his wife conceive at the same time that an eagle and serpent are feuding over ownership of a poplar tree and are also asking for help. The god takes care of each request justly and carefully in the same way as in the Epic of Gilgamesh, he helps the hero conquer the demon of the cedar forest, Humbaba. He was not always so accommodating, however. In the story of Inanna and Hulupu tree, the goddess takes a young Hulupu tree, possibly a willow, and transports it in the city of Uruk, thinking that when the tree reached maturity, she would use its wood to craft a throne and couch to recline on. As the years went by, a snake built a nest in its roots. An indigo bird nested in its branches, and at its center, the bad spirit of Lilitu set up house. When Inanna came to water her tree one evening, she found these unwanted guests. She sat down and cried through the night. At dawn, her twin brother, Uchu Shamash, rose in the east and began his journey across the sky. Inanna called out to him and told him of her trouble, but he could not stop his daily trek and further told her he felt no need to. Inanna then sought the aid of Gilgamesh, who took care of the snake, drove the bird away, and sent the Lilitu demon away. Afterwards, he cut down the tree and presented it to Inanna for her throne. This was no selfish request on her part, because from the tree, she created the sacred drum and drumsticks for Gilgamesh, which he was supposed to use for good, but then misused for war. They were taken from him and drawn down to the netherworld. This story then sets the stage for the myth in which Enkidu, the comrade in arms of Gilgamesh, and his best friend descend to the underworld to bring them back, and after his death, Uchu Shamash parts the veil so that the two friends can talk one last time. It highlights a central aspect of the personality of Uchu Shamash, his involvement in the most intimate aspects of one's life. Ernie Black comments on this after listing the god's aspects regarding the sun and justice, writing, "The third aspect of Uchu was his direct interest in the affairs of mankind. One of the early legendary kings of Uruk is described as the son of Uchu in the composition called the Sumerian King List. And Uchu acted as a special protector of some of the later heroic kings of the city, for instance Gilgamesh. In the Babylonian Epic of Gilgamesh, Shamash helps the hero against the monstrous guardian of the cedar forest, Humbaba. In the Sumerian poem, Dumuzi's Dream, Uchu helps Dumuzi to escape from the Gala demons who have come to take him to the underworld. Throughout the Epic of Gilgamesh, Utu Shamash is noted for his kindness and diligence in watching over the hero, and for this reason came to be regarded as the patron god of travelers and vagabonds. He also became associated with the highest of the gods, and even the benefactor of the gods, who provided them with a home. At one point in the Epic of Gilgamesh, when Gilgamesh and Enkidu are setting out in the cedar forest, Gilgamesh says to his comrade, "Where is the man who can clamber to heaven? Only the gods live forever with glorious Shamash, but as for us men, our days are numbered. Our occupations are a breath of wind." The hopes and dreams, the aspirations and struggles of humanity were considered little more than a vapor. But Utu Shamash was eternal, and he would continue long after any individual life was only a memory. Although his name was forgotten as other religions gained acceptance, the vision of a loving son of a god, the light of the world, was not.
We use electricity to power every aspect of our lives. Simple stuff like making a cup of tea or powering our tablets and phones. We are on a journey to find out where some of this electricity
What up, bro? Yo, man, motherfucker flagged me for that shit, bro. Straight up flagged me and fucking logged me out of the PlayStation Network. That's what I keep forgetting too. Like YouTube is cool with that shit, but not Sony. You have violated community guidelines by showing nudity or something in your stream. Yeah. Well, no, it was somebody. It was somebody in the stream though. I was listening to some of that atheist shit, and they come in here talking about, "Oh, you're gonna burn in hell. What are you listening to? Something, something." And they like, "You're gonna burn in hell." And then right after that, like my fucking stream shut down. I'm like, I know that little bitch just flagged me, yo. Whoever the fuck that dude was, motherfucker went and snitched me out fast. Yo, religious people are mean as shit sometimes, yo. I'm not bothering you. I'm not forcing you to watch this shit or listen to what the hell I'm listening to. You don't like it, just leave. Bye. No, you wanna come in here telling me I'm gonna burn in hell and then fucking tell on me and get me fucking logged out the fucking network. That's mean, bro. You don't even know me. You know what I'm saying? You don't even know me. Like I was watching some streams the other day, man, and then like you see the little thumbnails and shit, bro. And in this one thumbnail, there's this big fat white dude, and behind him he got a big ass rebel flag. And now, did I have to click on that? No, I didn't. But I thought it looked interesting, so I did click on it. And this dude's chilling at his crib, and he got this big ass British flag and this rebel flag and some kind of crossbone flag, and he got on I think he had on like some sports team hat, listening to like some old rock music and shit. And I don't know, I can't really remember what he was talking about, but it wasn't my cup of tea. But then I flag him for like, oh, you're racist with your fucking rebel Confederate flag or anything like that. I didn't even make a comment. I just left out. I just checked it out for a minute. I was like, all right, this is probably something I'm not interested in, and then I left. But no, not these Christians. Exactly. You're gonna burn. Bitch, how you know? How you judging my fate? Who gave you who gave you the authority to tell me I'm gonna burn in hell? That's what I wanna know. Who told you to tell me that? And why they ain't tell me they self? I'm gonna burn in hell, but you coming here being all mean and shit. I ain't even do nothing to you. Now I can't show my nipples. And it's the part of the painting I need to work on the most right now. Now I just kind of gotta work around the tape and shit. Like, come on, man. That shit ain't even fair. They put some new shit on Red Dead? Uh-oh. Hmm. I know they got a Apex Legends update. I was watching somebody stream that. Motherfucker had some boxing gloves or some shit on that shit now. I haven't played that in a minute, but that they gave us Titanfall 2 free on PlayStation Network this month, so I don't know, man. The first Titanfall was, like I say, bro, that's the whole reason I bought that fucking Xbox, yo. Titanfall exclusively on Xbox One. I was like, alright, Microsoft, you got me. This game looks too fucking dope. Man, that shit was a total failure. And then that's why when part 2 came out, they made sure they had to throw it on all the platforms at the same time. Don't make this shit exclusive to one platform and that shit be corny and then you don't get no fucking sales. And that's why I feel like those are some of the games they give away for free too, like the ones that don't do as well. Like, here, y'all can have this game. But they finally, the first part really didn't have like a campaign mode on it. And I've been more into the playing campaigns and stories lately. Well, actually, I've always been more into the story part of the game. Like the online part, that shit don't really make some games better for me. You know, most motherfuckers won't play a game if there's not like some competitive online shit. But that don't really make the game that much better. And so finally they got a in-depth like story mode for that Titanfall. I just been playing that for the past couple weeks. Like I think I downloaded it last week. Got that Red Dead. If there's new stuff on there, I know I have to update that shit, yeah. Man, so you gonna be up all night. Alright, that's what's up. I might play that shit for a little minute after this. I went to bed early too, yo. I was on the couch dozing off like 7, 8 o'clock. And got in bed like fucking 9 something. Then woke up like 3. Just like, fuck it. Might as well go in the studio. But actually, like I said, I need to work around these areas. I'm gonna have to stop the stream or anyway to they work on that shit. Man, I'm scared to do that shit on camera now. I'm trying to work my way this way. And then like around this nip, just this side of her torso. And then her shoulder down, her hand, and put some detail on these beads. And then that shit'll be done, yo. Everything else, her face, everything this way, I ain't really messing with that shit no more. I'm liking it. I'm thinking it looks good right now. So you just got off. I know you about to do, man. I'm about to go home, get something to eat, roll up, and turn the game on. But you say you got that Titanfall? I say, man, for free, I got it. I get that shit for free. Oh, I was so disappointed with that first one. And even this one, I thought it was gonna take like, it's that grunt shit. Like they got these bots in there. For what? Like no other shooter has bots in it. I want everybody I kill to be a fucking online player. You be going hardcore. Ah, that was a fucking bot. Like, yo, get the fuck out of here. Where the fucking player? Then you just turn around and then a player smacks you. Come on. I just did the multiplayer for the first time earlier today. The goddamn that's how I was playing through the story mode and the campaign. It's, story's it's not nothing super serious or whatever, but it does help you learn the controllers better. See, this is ridiculous. I can't. I gotta move that tape. That's why, man. Some games I don't know. I already know. Like, I'm not as quick to buy games anymore. I used to pre-order damn near everything that's coming out. I want to play that. 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 But man, after playing so many games, man, like a lot of them just the same now. I'm just like, I don't know. Like I say lately, I'd rather watch somebody else play a game instead of me actually spending the money buying it and playing it myself. Like, let me just watch you do it. You know, that's entertaining enough to me. I'll watch you play it. Thanks for buying that game and showing me, like everything about it. And that's the cool thing about tech now is like we can do that. Like before, you couldn't, experience everything about a video game unless you had it yourself and played it. Now, like you can just watch somebody else play that shit. You know what I'm saying? I watched the new that Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Yeah, I watched like 2 hours, like the first at least hour and a half of like all this the cutscene cinematic. Somebody did a really good one, where it's I just put in, Call of Duty all cutscenes, and so they have like some of the gameplay where there is a lot of dialogue going on. They'll keep that part of gameplay in there, but for the most part, it is just the cinematic cutscenes, and it's like a little movie, but the shit is like 4 or 5 hours long or something, 6 hours. I watched the first little bit of it, and it's cool. I like watching that shit like that, and I don't feel like I have to go buy the game and play it myself. But if you want to give me that shit for free, that's like what you call it too, Borderlands. I had Borderlands 1 and 2. I paid for those, and those were good games. But like the other ones that have come out, like I haven't gotten those. But they had Borderlands free to play for like a weekend, and so I did jump on there and play that shit. Then you give me that shit for free. I ain't gonna say no, motherfucker. I like Borderlands. I mean, but I'm like, did y'all make it innovative enough to buy this shit again? Not really. All right. Something like that. Really need to move the tape. Damn it, man. Damn you, community guidelines. not gonna be able to do any more right there. Let me see. Yeah, let me know when you get home, bro. I'm gonna go downstairs in a second. I've been here for about an hour. We'll play a game for a minute. Take my ass back to sleep. Get back up. Come back in the studio. That Titanfall, like I said, I was playing that online shit. That shit ain't too bad, man. I don't like the bots in there, but I've always liked that mech shit. Big ass anime fan. Always loved fucking like Gundam Wing and fucking Voltron and all that shit. Even Power Rangers to an extent where you jump inside these big ass fucking robots and shit. So that part of Titanfall is what made me really, really want that game. Like, what? You got a fucking mech suit? And the mechanics on it are pretty good. I just gotta get better at that shit. Seems like every time I jump in my fucking mech on that shit, it's enemy is attacking your mech. And it's like, motherfuckers, you can jump on that shit, yo. And pull out the battery cores or whatever. Make them shits blow up, yo. It's actually easy for just a foot soldier to take down those shits if you get close to them. Word. That's what's up, bro. I'm about to get out. I'm about to get from out here in a minute. Yeah, shit, me too, bro. Like I said, my job, motherfucking 30, 35 minutes away sometimes, depending on traffic. Alright guys, I'm about to cut it short right here. Like I say, I really hate jumping around too much because I wanted to finish this section here. But I'll come back and do that off screen so I can move the tape. But this paint is looking nice. Alright. Alright. And I could probably finish this by next week. I gotta do some varnishing. I never varnished that canvas, and I never varnished that one back there. So I can probably varnish both of those later on today. Work on this a few more hours today, cause it's Sunday. I gotta go back to work tomorrow. But I can definitely have this done before next weekend. Oh snap! Oh shit! Right hand down. Let's see how much longer I can stay up. definitely. Probably sleep like 8 o'clock in the morning. It's almost 5. Yeah, I'll probably stay up for like another hour or so. Go back to bed like 6, 7. Probably sleep about 10. If I get into bed like 7 o'clock and get like 3 more hours of sleep, I should be good. Alright, I'm gonna go downstairs and get on that fucking Titanfall.